Hey, welcome to another Bible Buzz. This is the question Doctrines of Devils or Deviled Ham Part 2. We're going to look at whether Jesus actually put ham back on the menu in Mark chapter 7. A lot of people believe that he did, so let's go ahead and take a look at it and we will just decide for ourselves. So let's cruise on over there to that passage and we're going to take a good look at this. All right, so here is Mark chapter 7. We'll put this in both English and Greek so we can take a good look at that. Now, the question here is, did Jesus make all foods clean? A lot of people say yes, and that now pork and all those things that God said do not eat back in Leviticus chapter 11, that Jesus has defied that. He has annulled that, and now those things are actually okay to eat. And they'll come here to Mark chapter 7, specifically verse 15, as their proof text. As Jesus says in verse 15, there is nothing that enters a man from the outside which can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are the things that defile a man. Well, my goodness, you'd think, hello, Jesus is telling us that it's okay to eat whatever you feel like it. And even those things that God said, please don't eat these, back in Leviticus chapter 11, clear as day, he said, don't eat them because they're not clean animals. He said, they're not for you to eat. Well, apparently Jesus is, telling us it's okay. Then you couple that with Peter's dream in Acts chapter 10, which we talked about in our part one of this particular series. You'd think, well, everything's okay to eat, and that is how most Christians live. And unfortunately, they're quite wrong about this. So let's take a look. Let's see why they're wrong. Why in the world do I think I'm actually right? Well, that's the whole point of this Bible Buzz. All right, what does it say? The Pharisees and some of the scribes came to him saying, having come from Jerusalem. Now, when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defile, that is, with unwashed hands, they found fault. All right, we got to stop right here. First of all, who's talking? The Pharisees and the scribes. Are these guys like into the Torah? Yeah, of course they are. Now, they're also into this thing called the oral law. The oral law is not found in the Bible. It's the stuff that they added, it's the traditions of the fathers, and it's not specifically given anywhere in the pages of the Bible, whether the Torah, the prophets, or the writings. It's not there. And it says, for the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands in look at this, in a special way, holding the tradition of the elders. Well, there you go. That's your first clue about what we're talking about. We're not talking about God's word. We're talking about man's word. We're talking about adding traditions to our text. We're talking about stuff that God didn't talk about, but what the people decided to add. You see, that's the first clue, you guys. You got to read the Bible or you're not going to get it. If you think that you can go to Mark chapter 7, verse 15 and just say, well, Jesus said this, then you are gravely mistaken. You have to go back and you've got to look at it or you're going to be like confused, okay? So let's continue looking at our text here. And the cool thing about the word is it tells you everything you need to know. To think that Jesus would defy and would contradict anything that the Father said is absolute nonsense. I mean, why would Jesus do that? Remember, Jesus and the Father, they're one. They have the same purpose, the same mind, and they're not going to be against each other. Jesus is not coming to give a bunch of brand new laws. He's coming to take people back. So, first of all, these Pharisees, they don't wash unless they wash their hands in a special way, holding the tradition of the fathers. And it says, when they came from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. And there are many other things which they have received and hold, like the washing of cups, pitchers, copper vessels, and couches. So see, Mark tells you all this stuff. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? You guys, this isn't this complicated. It's right here. I don't even know if I can add much commentary to this. It's so clear. Then he answered and said to them, well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, the people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching doctrines, the commandments of men, for laying aside the commandment of God, You hold the tradition of men, the washing of pitchers and cups, and many other such things you do. He said to them, all too well you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition. Oh my goodness, this is exactly what the church is doing today. Now, I'm not saying everybody, and I'm not saying that you're going to hell if you eat pig. I don't think that's the case. Gosh, I hope not, because I used to eat it for a number of years until I kind of woke up. But, I'm not saying who's going to heaven, who's going to hell. That's not my place. I'm just going to tell you what the word says. And if you're going to tell me that pork is back on the menu, you are gravely mistaken. Gravely mistaken, all right? Because Jesus never said it. And look at this. People tell me, well, it's okay. Now it's okay to do that. Look at what you're doing. You're laying aside the commandment of God, and you hold a tradition of men. You reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition. That's exactly what people are doing today. Now, I know a lot of these people, they're nice people. And to be perfectly honest, I have fallen into the same trap a number of times. And I'm not saying I'm perfect now, because I'm not. I'm positive I'm not. Come live with me for a bit. You'll see that I'm not. All right. But it's a far different thing to say, hey, I was wrong about something. And you know what? I didn't realize what the word said, to say, no, it says that. And that's not what it actually means. That is ludicrous. All right, let's go on. So rather than me giving you a little rant, let's just keep on going through the text, because it's the text that's going to set you free. It's the truth that will set you free. And what the truth is that God doesn't want you to eat pig, because it's really nasty and gross for you. All right. So he says that you're laying aside the commandments of man, that you may keep your tradition. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father, mother, whatever profit you might have received from me is korban, that is a gift to God. So, here again, here's another one of the commandments. And notice Jesus is equating this one that's in the Big Ten, spoken by the mouth of God himself at Mount Sinai, as one of the commandments, and this other commandment about eating stuff as one of the commandments. And he's showing you that there's a similarity. So what they're doing here is they're denying what God actually said, and now they have this tradition. Then you no longer let him do anything for his father or his mother, making the word of God of no effect through your tradition, which you have handed down, and many such things you do. Oh my goodness, we have Pharisees today. People accuse me of being the Pharisee because I say, hey, you should do what God says. Whereas it's the traditions of men that the Pharisees were into, and that's why Jesus continually had to challenge them. Now, here's our verse, okay? All right, I better do 14 or someone's going to say you forgot it. He says, hear me, everyone. All right, there is nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are the things that defile a man. Okay, what are we talking about? Let's go back to look at our context. We're talking about hand washing. We're talking about hand washing. You see that? Now, the other important thing to understand is that the word here, defiled, is probably not the best interpretation, okay? It's probably not the best choice, all right? Because the word here in Greek is this one right here, all right? Koines, all right? And it means to make something common, something common. That's what we're talking about, all right? So Jesus goes on to say that there's nothing that goes into a man that can make him common. You see that? Nothing will make you common. What does it mean to be common? Well, the opposite of common is holy. Okay? And he says, and are you thus without understanding? Also, do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from outside cannot make him common? Right there it is. Right? Konose. That's the Greek word. Koinose is the word in question to make somebody common. Like, we've heard of koinonia, like fellowship, like common. The Koine Greek language was the common language. It just means the everyday, basic, common kind of stuff. That's what we're talking about. So he's saying, look, because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is limited, thus purifying all foods. And he said, what comes out of a man, that defiles him. For from within, out of the heart of man, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness of an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within a man and defile him. Look at here. And there's a word, common. See that? Same Greek word, common. It's not to make somebody unclean. You see, if we go back to Leviticus chapter 11, and I'm just going to show you in the Greek, simply for the sake of showing you the comparison. I love the Hebrew, I really do. Okay, so when we talk about this, and just so that you know that the versification between the Septuagint and the English or the Hebrew is sometimes off by a verse or two. Okay, so he goes on to say which animals that you can actually eat, and he says that these will be unclean to you. Here's the word, unclean. See that? And here's the Greek word, akatharton, right? Unclean. It's a different word. It's a different word altogether. You're not supposed to eat these because they're unclean. It has nothing to do with common. Now, I did a little search before we got on this program just to show you where we have common and we have holy, because the opposite of common is holy. The opposite of unclean is clean. So Jesus is not declaring all foods to be clean. He's simply saying there's nothing that can make you common. Okay, so what is going on here? Well, let's check out the first one. We'll make it a little bigger here so it's nice and easy to see. All right. So, and it says, and the priest answered David and said, there is no common bread on hand, but there is only holy bread. Now, holy bread is not holy by virtue of how you bake it. It's not because of the special ingredients in it. It's just bread. But it's bread that has been declared to be special. It is for a holy, set aside purpose. It becomes exclusive bread, right? That's what it means. When you enter into marriage, it becomes a holy relationship. It's a set aside, exclusive, set apart kind of relationship. You weren't born that way. The priest wasn't born that way. He didn't start holy, but by virtue of being chosen as a Levite and then going twice a year or 2 months a year to do his duties, and then the way that he dressed and all the things that he did, those things made him holy. But even more than that, we have in Deuteronomy chapter 7, where God says that he has made the nation of Israel holy. He has set them apart. Okay? He set them apart. He says, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. They've been set apart. That's the whole point. They've been set apart for their God. Okay, let's go to our next passage, and let me just bring up the Hebrew so you guys can check that out for you Hebrew masters out there. Okay, so we looked at the first one. Now we're looking at this next one here. Then David answered the priest and said to them, truly the women have kept from us about 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in effect common. Okay, so again, the versification is a little bit different here. So it says, and then David answered the Cohen and said to him, the women have been kept from us for 3 days. And he says, right here we have the young men are Kodesh. They're Kodesh. They're set apart. Okay, right there it is. See that? They're set apart. And it's the way of hol. Here's the Hebrew word hol, which means profane. Here, I'll just so you can see that profane common is unholy, profane common sand. Okay, sand is another word for that's just happens to be the same root. So this here is common. Okay, hol is common versus kodesh. So the opposite of common is kodesh or holy, right? So again, thinking about what Jesus said, there's nothing that can enter you that can make you common. And we even have another one here. We've got in the millennial temple, there are holy areas that are set aside, they're special versus the common. Let's just take it to a really basic example. Let's go into a hospital. When you go into a hospital, the first place you enter is, unless you're going through the emergency room, but if you're just going to visit, you're going through the waiting room, the lobby. That's holy. Anybody can go there, right? You can have dirty shoes. That's fine. But when you go into the operating room, that is now a holy place. It's set aside. It's special. You got to wash and all these amazing things that have to happen before you go into an operating room. It's holy. Whereas the waiting room is just common. You can have lots of different, stuff on your shoes, and you can, do whatever there. It's common. All right. So that's what we're talking about. So when we go back to what Jesus was telling us here in Mark chapter 7, what is he saying? Is he saying that you can now eat anything you feel like it? Look at the Pharisees weren't talking about that. They weren't saying, "Hey, we got a hankering for ham. Do you mind if we have some? Is it okay if we have some now?" They weren't asking that. They weren't saying, "Gosh, I sure wish I could eat some ham." They weren't saying that. They were talking about washing their hands, and they had to wash them in a special way. And they're saying, "Look, your disciples don't wash in a special way. What's wrong with them?" And Jesus is like, you guys got it all wrong. And now you're making these man-made traditions more important than the word of God. Look, Jesus wasn't arguing for or against hand washing. We should wash our hands, okay? It's definitely a good idea. God himself instituted taking a bath. He said, please, bathe yourselves. So it's good to wash. But what they did is they made washing a very special kind of way, and you had to do it this way and then this way, and all these different little buckets. You had to pour it on in a certain way in order to be acceptable. Otherwise, you'd be considered common. You're just a common person now instead of a holy person, which they were all supposed to be. And Jesus is making the case. It doesn't matter how you wash your hands, and even if you don't wash it in a certain way, and then you put, whatever you then eat with your hands goes into you, that's not going to make you common. It's not defiled, but common. It's not going to make you unclean, but common. That is the argument at hand. So this whole idea of Jesus declaring all foods to be holy or to be clean is absolutely false. He would never go against what the Father actually said. Why would he do that? Doesn't make any sense. That would make him a false prophet, which he is not, by the way. So he says, look, there's nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him or which can make him, what's the word? Common. Cannot make him common. There it is, right? So see, there's our word. There's nothing that can make him common. So he's not saying that pig is back on the menu and all those other things that God said do not eat, like the ostrich and the vulture and the hawk and other stuff. He said, don't eat the camel, for example. Do you guys really want to eat that stuff? No, it's nasty, disgusting, right? No, I'm going to stick with beef. It tastes great, it's a good animal. Chicken, yeah, I love it. All right, but I'm not into vulture. It's just nasty. So this idea again that now I can eat pig and it's going to go in my stomach and it's eliminated. No, it's not. You guys, look, it's going to go into your body and it's going to become one with you. So he's not talking about eating unclean foods. He's talking about what makes you common. I don't know how else I can say that. It's not the food won't make you common, but if you eat unclean animals, which God said do not eat, then it will make you unclean, and that's a different matter. But the word here, defile, again, probably not the best translation. The word is common, and I hope this answers this question. A lot of people have misunderstanding about this, and I get this question all the time. So there you have it. Thanks for joining me on this Bible Buzz. Please do subscribe and share this. You can also go to douglashamp.com. You can check out my various articles, my books. I invite you to go to the bookstore. There you can check out Corrupting the Image. That's a fun book. Also, the Millennium Chronicles, what's going to come in the millennium. Lots of fun. God bless you guys. Always make sure to write to me. Also, you can join us on Facebook at The Awakening Report or on the Bible Buzz on Facebook as well. But the real action is happening on the Awakening Report. All right, until next time, God bless you.